Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have returned with the 5th part of the Terry Gilliam-athon, far sooner than I actually expected, and today's subject is the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Co-written with Charles McEwen, Gilliam's co-writer on Brazil and the Adventures of Baron Munchausen, there were plenty of different aspects that Gilliam wanted to explore. First, he wanted to explore imagination, and to show how it affects the way you live and think. It also features many autobiographical elements, as the story features an old man with a vivid imagination, but no one wants to listen to his stories anymore. Terry also wanted to offer a kind of more older, delightful tale that we used to get, especially in an age that is cluttered with, well, all of these.
I decided to make a film that was hopefully original, that wasn't based on an adaptation of a book or something else. One of the original feelings about the film was to do a compendium, kind of the things that had always been either in my films or films that I wanted to make, something more playful. I was thinking of Fellini's Amarcord, which was made at a certain point in his career, and Bergman's Fanny and Alexander. In both instances, these filmmakers seemed to have reached a point in their lives where they just wanted to relax and do something joyful and positive and forget about sort of the neurotic things they'd been playing with or the experimental things. Just go and relax.
This also came at a time when Gilliam was still pretty depressed over the collapse of The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. That is, the first attempt back in 2000, as well as the following fight to get the screenplay rights back from the insurance companies. He was having increasing difficulty finding financing for his films, not to mention he was becoming more and more aware of his age, fearing that he may not have much time left to make more movies. Filming began in December 2007 in London, with the major visual effects scenes to be done in Vancouver. Production, however, came to a screeching halt, as on January 22, 2008, Heath Ledger died. At that time, Gilliam wasn't so much worried about how to get the film finished, he just flat out thought it was over. Everyone was utterly stunned when the news of Heath's death came through. It was beyond horrible. It was impossible, unbelievable, unbearable. Not only had we lost a wise and joyous friend, a part of our family, but an extraordinary talent who, I have no doubt, would have been the greatest of his generation. I just said, I don't give a fuck about the film. I give up. I'm finished. I'm old and tired and worn out and I want to go home. Luckily, I surround myself with people who don't listen to anything I say. My daughter Amy, who is one of the film's producers, Nicola Pecorini, and my friend Ray Cooper kept telling me, you can't do that, you gotta finish it for Heath. Whatever arguments they used took a full week and a half, or maybe even 2, to rouse me from my slow to despond. After throwing different ideas around, such as using CG to change Ledger's appearance in various ways, eventually a solution came in the form of Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell, who were all close friends of Heath Ledger. They all came in to shoot scenes in the Imaginarium, where every time Ledger's character Tony entered, his appearance would change. My thought process started off like this. Okay, you've got to get someone to replace Heath, but there's no one person who is good enough. Even if there was, I don't want to work with him even if he was available, which he won't be at this short notice, and we don't have time to redo the whole film. Then I realized he goes through the magic mirror 3 times, so maybe we can get 3 different actors to play him. I was partly thinking of Louis Brunel's That Obscure Object of Desire, where 2 different actresses play the same character, but mainly about how if the part was divided into 3, Heath's 3 replacements would only need to turn up for a few days. Depp, Law, and Farrell all donated their salaries to Ledger's daughter, Matilda, who had been left out of an older version of Ledger's will. The film's producer William Vince also passed away during the film's production, as he was dying of cancer at the time. According to Terry, he died a week after the last roll of film went through the camera. As if that weren't bad enough, during post-production, Terry got hit by a van as he was exiting one of his favorite restaurants. He ended up breaking a vertebra, but no other significant damage was done. He looked back on it and laughed, saying, "It was 3rd time lucky. They didn't get me. They got the star, the producer, and they were going for the director, and the fuckers failed on the last one. Whoever they are. They were going for the Trinity. That would have been a tidy end to the whole thing, but they didn't kill me. I'm stuck here to tell the tale." The film follows a group of people in, as best as I can describe it, a theatrical theater cart that is strikingly out of place in modern-day London. The leader of this troupe is Dr. Parnassus, played by Christopher Plummer. Parnassus comes from the Greek name Parnassos, a mountain in Greece that was a home to the Muses. Along with Dr. Parnassus is a runaway named Anton, played by Andrew Garfield, Parnassus's daughter Valentina, played by Lily Cole, and finally the long-suffering friend of Dr. Parnassus, Percy, played by Vern Troyer. Although details are given to us bit by bit, we learn that Dr. Parnassus is immortal, and he has been engaging in, shall we say, a series of wagers with the devil, or a devil, named Mr. Nick, played by Tom Waits. What started off as an attempt to disprove Dr. Parnassus' notion of the eternal story eventually turned into a game of gathering 12 disciples. The first time they talk, Parnassus explains that he, as well as the other monks in the monastery, are telling the eternal tale, the tale that sustains the universe and keeps it going. Without it, everything would stop. So Mr. Nick shuts everybody up. When it looks like the devil is correct in that there's no tale anywhere sustaining anything, a bird of some kind, this one, I don't know what it is, takes a dump on his suit. Parnassus takes that as a sign, realizing that there is more than one tale that sustains the universe.
Somewhere in this world, right now, someone else is telling a story, a different story, a saga, a romance. It's sustaining the universe. You can't stop stories being told.
That's a weak hypothesis.
And that was my first wager with the devil. The very first of us to attract 12 disciples would win the bet. His argument, the necessities of danger, of fear, of the fabled bliss of ignorance. Mine, the power of the imagination to transform and illuminate our lives.
Parnassus won, and his reward was the one thing he wanted the most, eternal life. But it came at an incredibly high cost. Mr. Nick let him win, because he knew times would change and nobody would listen to Dr. Parnassus' stories anymore. And indeed, we see that happening in modern London. No matter where they go, it is difficult, if not impossible, for Parnassus to attract followers. And in one instance, just as he is about to get one, Mr. Nick lures him away.
You have chosen well. The path to Parnassus is steep, way is long. Perseverance and fierce dedication are attainable. So with spirits high and a spur open, and you...
Hi there. Come on in.
Niet meine dubbel!
You won. I lost. I lost. Again.
But not being able to attract followers is very bad for Parnassus. The thing is, after he became immortal, Parnassus fell in love with a certain woman. After becoming despondent about not being able to woo her, he wanted to throw himself off a cliff. But Mr. Nick caught him, gave him youth, and everything he would need to woo the woman. And indeed, he did win her, and they lived a good life. At 60 years old, however, she became pregnant and died giving birth to Valentina. And of course, Mr. Nick gave Parnassus youth and all those powers to win her, on condition that any child born would become his at the age of 16. By the time the story opens, it's only about 3 days or so before Valentina's 16th birthday. Parnassus is running out of time.
He's come to collect.
I thought so. He's early.
What can I do?
Nothing.
How many days left?
3.
Eventually, Mr. Nick decides to update the game as a show of mercy to Parnassus by updating the wager.
What do you say? First to 5 souls.
First to 5? Huh? No tricks? No cheating?
No cheating.
I'd say yes. Deal.
Okay, by her birthday then.
That's in 2 days.
First 1 to 5 souls wins.
I'll kill you, you son of a bitch!
Now that I'd like to see.
Then one night, our theater troupe encounters a man named Tony, played by Heath Ledger, hanging under a bridge and rescue him. When he comes to, he claims he has no memory, which is not true. He's on the run from both the Russian mob and the police for a fraudulent children's charity he's been running.
Pity. I speak Russian.
But since Dr. Parnassus saw a hangman in the cards, and upon seeing some strange symbols written on Tony's head, Parnassus sees in Tony a possibility to change the game. As much as this film is about imagination and how it reveals who we are, the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus is about a man who is very much undone by his choices. Becoming immortal has become very much a curse, and it just became a way for Mr. Nick to torment Parnassus. For all the wisdom he likely showed in the past or what he could show now in the current time, that is all more or less past by the time we see him. And he is now taking the drinking and taking whatever bet Mr. Nick throws his way in the slight chance that he could win. In this way, Dr. Parnassus comes off as a hopeless gambler, and it strains his relationship with his daughter. It's a funny thing with her because while she is aware of his powers, she wants to get away from it. Her imagination has nothing to do with Dr. Parnassus's works at all. Hers is just to live a normal life. In fact, his relationship with her reaches a head that when he explains everything to her, including becoming the property of the devil should he lose, she explodes.
Just telling a story. A cruel story.
True, every word of it's true, but there's a new wager. No, we can win. You'll be mine again.
Who are you? I don't know anymore. All my life you filled my head with dreams. Your dreams. What am I? A pathetic bet.
In his attempt to win against Mr. Nick and free Valentina, freeing Valentina being a good thing by the way, he misses some important details. One, Parnassus has never won against Mr. Nick. That's because Mr. Nick can read him like a book, and he knows when to catch him at his most vulnerable to make more bets with him. Secondly, it makes him blind to other problems, such as not realizing Tony is very, very bad news, who only goes along with Parnassus and his theater troupe as he believes it must be a scam, and sees it as a good way to make cash.
You haven't been inside the doctor's mind, have you?
No, I haven't.
No, you probably think it's some kind of scam, don't you?
Well, ain't it?
Right, so if Dr. Parnassus can really control people's minds, then why isn't he ruling the world then? Why bother with this little sideshow?
You don't want to rule the world. He wants the world to rule itself.
Only for him to see that it is very real. And when he goes into the mirror, it reveals to us, and to Anton, who he really is. He's basically a chameleon, who can alter his attitudes, accents, behaviors, in order to try to get what he wants. When Heath Ledger died, the drunk who goes into the Imaginarium to chase Valentina was added to establish the appearance change. It was supposed to show that anything can happen. So when we get what I call the Johnny Depp form, we get the ladies' man, the smooth talker.
This is very, 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 very important. Your sacrifice must be absolutely pure. You will need to relinquish all of your worldly possession. Prepare to be reborn, Tony. Remember, nothing's permanent. Not even death.
When we get the Jude Law form, we see him as a man in an endless pursuit of success.
Reach for the clouds. It can be you. It will be you. It is you. It will be you.
Wakey! Wakey, wakey! Anton, I need your help. Wakey, wakey, you've got to help me.
Oh, great.
I climbed the ladder. Oh, it was unbelievable. I mean, I nearly touched the clouds. I felt incredible.
And when we get to the Colin Farrell form, he is all of those things, but absolutely horrid.
Disgraced director of children's charity, Suffer the Little Children.
He's lying, it's not right.
Get out! I'm selling organs to third world children and selling them to wealthy Westerners.
Rat. He's a fool! Come here, you little bastard! One man. Kill you!
If Heath Ledger's Tony in the real world was him hiding most of that, then it is ironically in his imagination and in others that he reveals who he actually is. Characters who are more level-headed than some of the others include Anton, who's in love with Valentina, and wants to run away with her.
I'm worried about Anton. What's eating him?
He's in love with Valentina.
In love? Who gave him permission?
It happens.
That's the thanks I get. I'll skin him alive.
While you're at it, there's the other one.
The other one?
The forgetful cobra.
Oh, Tony. Oh, Tony's another kettle of fish. Ambitious, energetic, man of destiny. Well, Scrumpy sees some good in him.
She's better off with Anton.
Even though in contrast to Valentina, he's more in awe of the Imaginarium than she is. He sees through Tony more or less immediately, and does what he can to keep Valentina away from him. And as far as Percy goes, well, between him and Parnassus, he's the sober one, and the one who, in many ways, is more wise than Parnassus, sometimes acting as the leader of the group, and states what should be obvious to Parnassus.
Don't be a fool.
Let go!
Can't die.
Let go!
You're immortal. You just end up broken in an eternity war.
What would I do without you?
Get a midget.
What?
Short fella, a little taller than I am. Short legs, short feet, big head. Runs kind of funny.
Yes, I know.
The relationship between Mr. Nick and Dr. Parnassus is pretty unique. Mr. Nick loves to play around with Parnassus, and looks for every opportunity to do so. When we get to the end and Valentina believes that she's lost Anton, and when she believes that her dad died at this point, she kind of gives up. And she's willing to give herself up to Mr. Nick, which isn't what he had in mind.
Supposed to be the prize, not part of the final score.
But when she does go to his side, He says,
"Damn, I've won."
Parnassus at the end is practically broken and doesn't respond even when Mr. Nick is talking to him. Realizing that losing an immortal gambling buddy is no fun, he makes a deal with him. If Parnassus helps to get rid of Tony, he'll release Valentina, because Mr. Nick is actually quite annoyed with Tony at several times.
I hope they get that bastard and tear him limb from limb. But they won't. He leads a charmed life, that one. I've been trying to get that bastard for years. I thought I had him this time, but some prat always seems to come along and rescue him.
When Dr. Parnassus believes that Tony could help him win against Mr. Nick, he was kind of right, but not necessarily in the way that he would have thought. As I see it, he seemed to kind of view Tony as a kind of good luck charm, somebody that can help him gather the followers that he needs. And that indeed starts to happen when they're at the mall or whatever the hell this place is, with all these women who find bliss in the Imaginarium. The thing is though, Tony was only inadvertently helping the doc. And Mr. Nick is especially annoyed that Tony has evaded death so many times, mostly because he's managed to survive hangings by sticking a gold pipe down his throat to keep it from being crushed, which is apparently something that people have done in the past to survive hangings. Probably not all of them, but maybe some of them. He gets Tony to select the wrong one, a cheap one that breaks, and Tony is hung. Although I don't know why the Russian mob or an outraged public would select hanging as a way of getting rid of him. They could run him over with a car or shoot him, but I don't know. I have to say that all the performances in this movie are good, and while it's certainly understandable that most of the attention went to Heath Ledger and his 3 replacements, I think the performance that is most unsung is Tom Waits as Mr. Nick. He has such a dry, smarmy charm that it's kind of impossible to hate him, and I love that no matter which time period he's in, always dresses the same, with that suit, that hat, and that pencil-thin John Waters mustache. It's wonderfully anachronistic. Valentina is free, and technically so is Parnassus from the grips of Mr. Nick. He wanders around broken and alone, but he eventually comes back to the real world and finds that Valentina and Anton are with their daughter, living happily. Percy finds him and recommends that he not go and talk to her at all. He's a mess and needs help, and Percy is ironically his only hope of getting him back on his feet, especially after Parnassus pushed him away near the end of the film.
She's gone.
Telling the truth, always a bad idea.
Hold your tongue, you smug little pustule! Get out of my sight and stay out!
Perhaps you'll find a midget. If you're lucky.
So they start making money by selling Victorian cutout theaters.
The Dr. Parnassus, open your imagination. Transcend heights on beauty's open wing.
Does it come with a happy ending?
Sorry, we can't guarantee that.
Oh, that line is very appropriate as we see Mr. Nick hanging around looking to tempt Dr. Parnassus again. And Percy is keeping him in line. I have to think, though, is this one of those stories that is keeping the world going? And I wonder how it will end. Will it end happily with him reuniting with Valentina and starting over again with her?
Sorry, we can't guarantee that.
Well, such is life. Since, as Gilliam stated before, that this film functions as a kind of compendium, pretty much everything a fan would know and love about Terry Gilliam is in this film. Whether it be the visuals that take their inspiration from the past, not just going back to his Python days, but from older paintings and older styles of art, the wild cinematography, the occasional goofy humor, or the exploration of themes such as imagination and madness, but covered in a unique way. It's all here. And I have to say, when I saw this movie a few years ago, the first couple of times, I was kind of meh on it. But rewatching this again, this is another one of those cases where the movie turned out to be much better than I expected. I actually saw so much more in it than I did the first time. I don't know if I can call this one of the absolute top tier of his greatest works, but it's still worth watching. I highly recommend it.